said, like, I've lived a long life, and along the way, I've learned that truth isn't something you shout, it's something you discover quietly, in moments of reflection, in conversations that challenge you, and in experiences that change you. I said, like, when I first began to truly look into Islam, I wasn't searching for headlines, I wasn't chasing controversy, I was searching for understanding something deeper than what we're often told to believe. I said, like, what I found wasn't what I expected, and maybe that's the point, because sometimes what we expect is shaped by noise, by fear, by narratives that never take the time to sit down and listen. I said, like, Islam at its core speaks about submission, not to people, not to power, but to the one creator, a concept so simple yet so profound that it humbles you when you truly think about it. I said, like, and I've come to realize that humility is something this world is running dangerously low on. We live in a time where everyone wants to be right, everyone wants to be heard, but very few want to understand. I said, like, and understanding is where everything begins. When I look beyond the headlines, beyond the politics, beyond the fear-driven stories, I found a faith that emphasizes discipline, patience, charity, and a direct relationship with God. I said, like, no middleman, no complexity designed to confuse, just a human being standing before their creator 5 times a day, grounding themselves, reminding themselves of what truly matters. There's something powerful about that. I said, like, something deeply human. Because at the end of the day, no matter where you come from, what you believe, or how different your life may look on the surface, we all share the same questions. Why are we here? I said, like, what is our purpose? And what happens when this life is over? I said, like, Islam doesn't shy away from these questions. It confronts them with clarity, with structure, with a sense of accountability that can be both intimidating and comforting at the same time. And I think that's where many people misunderstand it. I said, like, they see rules, they see boundaries, and they mistake that for restriction. But what if those boundaries are actually there to guide, to protect, to bring a sense of order in a world that often feels chaotic? I said, like, you see, discipline isn't the enemy of freedom. Sometimes it's the very thing that makes freedom meaningful. I've seen people dedicate their lives to chasing everything the world tells them will make them happy, money, fame, power, and still feel empty inside. I said, like, and then I've seen people who have very little in terms of material wealth, but who carry a sense of peace that you can't buy, can't fake, can't manufacture. And when you look closely, you start to notice a pattern. I said, like, that peace often comes from a strong connection to something greater than themselves. In Islam, that connection is constant. I said, like, it's not reserved for Sundays. It's not limited to a specific place. It's woven into daily life. From the moment you wake up to the moment you sleep, there's a consciousness of God that shapes your actions, your words, your intentions. I said, like, an intention, now that's something worth talking about, because Islam places a heavy emphasis on it. It's not just what you do, it's why you do it. A simple act done with sincerity can carry more weight than something grand done for show. I said, like, and in a world obsessed with appearances, that's a lesson we could all benefit from. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I said, like, that's not my place. Belief is a personal journey, and it should never be forced, never be manipulated, never be reduced to slogans or sound bites. But what I will say is this: don't let anyone else do your thinking for you. Don't let fear, I said, like, dictate your understanding. Take the time to learn, to question, to explore. Because when you do, you might just find that what you thought you knew isn't the full picture. I said, like, and maybe, just maybe, you'll come to see that Islam, like many things in this world, has been misunderstood, not because it lacks truth, but because we haven't taken the time to truly listen. I said, like, and in the end, listening, that might be the most important thing we can do. And when you begin to listen, truly listen, you start to notice something else, something deeper than the surface level conversations that dominate our world today. I said, like, you begin to see the human side of Islam, not the version shaped by headlines, but the version lived by millions of ordinary people who wake up every day trying to be better than they were yesterday. I said, like, I've always believed that you can judge the strength of an idea not by how loudly it is defended, but by how quietly it transforms lives. And Islam, when you look closely, has that quiet power. I said, like, it doesn't need to shout to be felt. It doesn't need to dominate to be present. I said, like, it exists in the small, consistent actions. The prayer whispered in the early morning before the world wakes up, the charity given without expecting recognition, the patience shown in moments where anger would be easier. I said, like, these are not grand gestures designed for applause. They are personal commitments made in silence between a person and their creator. And there's something incredibly honest about that kind of relationship. I said, like, because when no one else is watching, when there is no audience, no validation, no reward in sight, that's when truth reveals itself. That's when belief becomes real. I said, like, you see, we often confuse visibility with value. We think that if something isn't constantly in front of us, it must not matter. But some of the most important things in life are invisible. Faith is one of them. It doesn't know. I said, like, needs itself. It doesn't demand attention. It simply exists, quietly shaping the way a person sees the world. And in Islam, that perspective is rooted in accountability. I said, like, not the kind imposed by society, but the kind that comes from within, the understanding that every action, every word, every intention carries weight, that nothing is truly lost, nothing is truly ignored, and that awareness, it changes a person. I said, like, it makes you pause before you speak. It makes you think before you act. It makes you reflect in a way that most of us aren't used to in a world that moves too fast to think. And maybe that's part of the problem. I said, like, we become so accustomed to speed, to instant reactions, to quick judgments, that we've forgotten how to slow down and understand. Islam, in many ways, forces that pause. I said, like, it interrupts the chaos of daily life with moments of stillness, moments where you step away from everything and reconnect with something greater than yourself. And I think that's something we all need, regardless of what we believe. I said, like, because without those moments, without that sense of grounding, it's easy to get lost, easy to forget what really matters. I said, like, easy to become consumed by things that in the grand scheme of life don't mean much at all. I spent years observing people, listening to their stories, trying to understand what drives them, what fulfills them, what breaks them. I said, like, and one thing I've noticed is that people are always searching for meaning, for purpose, for something that makes sense of it all. This may differ. The destination often looks the same. A sense of peace, a sense of clarity, a sense of belonging. Islam offers that to those who embrace it. This is a perfect life, but in a way that provides a framework, a structure that helps navigate the ups and downs, the highs and lows, the uncertainty that comes with being human being. I said, life is uncertain. That's one thing we can all agree on. I said, like, no matter how much control we think we have, there will always be things beyond us. And it's in those moments when control slips away that faith becomes more than just an idea. It becomes an anchor. I said, like, something to hold on to when everything else feels unstable. And I think that's why for so many people, Islam is not just a religion, it's a way of life. I said, like, it's a lens through which they see the world, a guide that shapes their decisions, their priorities, their understanding of right and wrong. I said, like, and while it may not be perfect, because nothing involving human beings ever is, the foundation it provides is something worth acknowledging, worth understanding. I said, like, not from a distance, not through assumptions, but through genuine curiosity. Because curiosity, that's where growth begins. That's where barriers break down, where misconceptions start to fade, where real conversations take place, and we need more of that. I said, like, we need more willingness to ask questions, more courage to challenge our own assumptions, more openness to perspectives that may differ from our own, because at the end of the day, understanding doesn't weaken us, it strengthens us. I said, like, it broadens our view, deepens our thinking, connects us in ways that division never could. And maybe that's the lesson here, not just about Islam, but about how we approach everything we don't fully understand. Instead of turning away, we lean in. I said, like, instead of judging, we listen. Instead of fearing, we learn, because when we do, we don't just discover new ideas, we discover a new way of seeing the world. And sometimes that's all it takes to change everything.